I've now installed 3 mini splits, 2 in my shop and 1 in my home gym. Over these 3 installs, I've made pretty much every mistake that you can make, including bad flares, wrong hole placement, leaking connections, you name it. But each one got cleaner, faster, and cheaper than the last. So today I'm going to walk you through the biggest lessons I've learned across all 3 installs. The stuff that no single install video is going to teach you. If you're thinking about doing your own mini split, this video is something you should watch first. As always, I'm not an electrician or an HVAC technician. This video is for educational purposes only. So here's a quick rundown of my installs. My first install was a 12,000 BTU 110 volt Della unit in my old knife shop. That was back in 2022, and it was the first time that I was ever touching refrigerant lines or anything with HVAC. Install number 2 was an 18,000 BTU 240 volt Della in my new shop. It was a much bigger unit and a slightly more complex install. And my third mini split was another 12,000 BTU unit, this time the cheapest one I was able to find on Amazon, and it went into my home gym. Each one of these taught me different lessons, so let's get into the details. Lesson number 1 is on the electrical. On my first install, I used MC armored cable running along the wall to a dedicated 20 amp breaker. It worked, but it wasn't the cleanest install. On the second mini split, I wanted to do it right, so I ran Romex through the attic behind the sheetrock. It was a much cleaner look, but I'll tell you what, doing electrical in a Texas attic in the summer is borderline dangerous. So make sure you do those type of projects when the weather is a little cooler. On the third install, I actually tapped into an existing circuit because this small unit didn't really draw a full 20 amps. So I tapped into a 20 amp circuit using a junction box, and then I tested the inrush amperage on that unit, and it only got up to around 3.7 amps. The big takeaway here for me is that you don't always need a dedicated circuit for the smaller units. One thing that really helped on my second install was I added an access panel above my breaker box, and that was really a game changer for the process. It made it very easy for me to get behind the sheetrock and make sure that my wires were appropriately clamped to the top of my breaker box. A final note on the electricity side, the first install I did, I actually put some Romex through conduit outside of the building. That's a big no-no from a code perspective, so don't do that. If you're running outside the building inside of conduit, run THWN through that, and you'll be good to go. That's actually the main reason that I ran the Romex through my attic and through the wall and out of the building directly into a box on my second install, so I don't have to worry about having conduit running outside the building. The second lesson I learned is that you probably need to get decent at flaring if you're going to be installing many of these mini splits. If there's one thing that separates a smooth install from a nightmare, it could potentially be the flaring. On my first install, I didn't even know what a flaring tool was, and the lines came pre-flared, and I thought that I'd be good to go. Then I found a leak, had to cut and reflare, and learn the whole process on the fly. To make it worse, one of the pre-flared fittings that came with the unit had a crack in it, so even the factory flares aren't always guaranteed. On install number 2, the unit had metric fittings, 6mm and 12mm fittings, instead of the standard Imperial 1/4 inch and 3/8 of an inch that I was used to. These felt more fragile, and I ended up over torquing the 6mm line and had to cut and reflare it multiple times. That was very frustrating. By install number 3, I had it all down pat, and the single biggest upgrade was the flaring tool right here. I'll be adding a link below for this tool because it is fantastic. It handles both imperial and metric sizes and has a built-in clutch that releases when you hit the right tension. That alone eliminates many of the common DIY mistakes, which is over-flaring or under-flaring your connections. If you're going to buy one tool for this project, make it a good flaring kit. The cheap big box store ones are really not worth the headache in my opinion. I also want to mention Nylog Blue. I put it on every single flare connection across all 3 installs. It's a thread sealant designed for refrigerant fittings. It helps lubricate the flared connections during assembly and provides a long-term seal. Lesson number 3 is don't trust the torque specs. This one might be controversial, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. The torque specs in the manuals felt too high for me on my last 2 installs. On install number 2, I followed the manual to the letter, and on the 6mm line, I'm pretty sure I over-torqued it. I ended up having to cut and reflare it multiple times. On install number 3, I started with the torque wrench and got nervous again as I approached the called out settings and ended up going by feel. Both installs passed their leak test. So here's my takeaway after 3 installs. Use a torque wrench to get yourself in the ballpark, but also use your brain and your gut and make sure that you're not ringing off some of these connections. The connection should be snug and firm, but not cranked to the point where you think you're about to completely break the flare fitting. Some of these smaller diameter copper tubes are just frankly fragile. I'll say this too, I'm not fully convinced my torque wrench is calibrated perfectly. The next time around, I'm going to pick up a second torque wrench just to cross-reference maybe that was my problem all along. If you've had similar experiences with the torque settings feeling too high, drop a comment down below. I'm curious to see if this is a common thing. Lesson number 4 is pour a concrete slab. It's better than a wall bracket. On my first install, I mounted the condenser on a wall bracket. It looked cool, it kept it off the ground, and it kept it away from the lawnmower. But I noticed more vibration and noise compared to a ground-mounted unit. On installs 2 and 3, I poured concrete slabs and used metal stands. The concrete route is not hard, 3 to 4 bags of 60 or 80 pound mix, some rebar, and a simple 2x4 frame, and about an hour of work. I actually reused the same wooden frame for install number 2 and install number 3. The slab gives you a more stable platform to work off of, and yes, less vibration and a cleaner look overall in my opinion. I'd recommend it over a wall bracket for most residential installs. Putting them on the stand on the concrete slab also keeps the unit off the ground, which makes it nice to get around with weed whackers or things like that. One tip when you're pouring these slabs is to buy 1 extra bag of concrete than you think you'd need. On install number 3, I ran a little bit short, and the top of my slab wasn't quite as flat as I'd like it to be. Lesson number 5 is hole placement will haunt you. This is one of those things that seems minor but will irritate you every time you look at it. On install number 2, I put the pass-through hole on the left side of the air handler instead of on the right side. Normally you want it on the right side so that you can bend the refrigerant lines out and through the wall when you mount the unit. This makes your connections happen on the outside of the building. My left side hole forced me to make all the connections to the long refrigerant lines inside the building and then carefully maneuver the whole assembly into the mount without kinking that 6mm line. It worked, but it was a pain in the butt. On install number 3, I measured my hole, drilled, and immediately hit a horizontal support stringer between the studs. I had to move the entire unit down 3 inches and drill again. Yes, the unit still works great, but the air handler still sits a little lower than I wanted, and the cross members on my power rack partially block the airflow. So lesson learned, take your time with the layout, measure twice, use a stud finder, and if you have a choice, keep the hole on the right side of the air handler. Lesson number 6, vacuum versus nitrogen testing. My approach to leak testing has evolved over all 3 installs. On install number 1, I did a vacuum test only. I pulled the system down to a negative 30 psi for about 30 minutes, watched for any drop, and called it good when it held. That's the standard DIY approach, and there's nothing wrong with it. On install number 2, I went a little further. I did a vacuum test and I rented a nitrogen bottle from a local welding supply shop for around 45 bucks and ran a positive pressure test. I stepped it up in 100 psi increments all the way up to 400 psi. I did this because a buddy of mine told me his install passed the vacuum but failed the positive test. It gave me extra confidence, especially considering I wasn't trusting my torque settings in that install. On install number 3, I went back to the vacuum only. I ran it for about an hour, let it sit for 5 hours, and it held steady. Then I did a partial charge, opening up the valves for about 2 seconds, and I got some refrigerant into the system and checked for leaks again. All the fittings did fine, so I opened everything up and I haven't had any problems with it since. So my recommendation here is for your first install, consider doing the nitrogen test for peace of mind. After that, a solid vacuum hold, especially one that lasts several hours, is sufficient for most DIY installs. Either way, always do a partial charge before flooding the system. Lesson number 7, these are tools that paid for themselves. Here's the thing about DIY mini split installs that make them such a good value proposition. You buy the tools only once. I bought my vacuum pump for my first install back in 2022 and I've used it on all 3 installs. Same with my gauge set, my torque wrench, and the Nylog Blue. Here are some tools that I tell anyone to buy before their first install, and I'll put some affiliate links to all these in the description below and the top pinned comment. First, a quality flaring kit with imperial and metric capacity. This is one of the most important tools in my opinion because in all 3 of these cases, I ended up having to cut and reflare some of the lines. Second is going to be a vacuum pump and a gauge manifold set. Third is going to be a torque wrench with the metric crow's feet attachments so that you can get close to your torque settings in your manual. Even if you end up going by feel, I think it's good to have a torque wrench for these installs. Fourth up is probably Nylog Blue, and fifth is going to be a line set cover kit. These are cheap and make your entire install look 10 times better. And if you want to go to extra mile, you can get yourself a nitrogen bottle rented for some testing, but you'll have to provide your own little gauge set for that nitrogen bottle. I bought mine off of Amazon and it worked great on my second install. Depending on how intense you go and the quality of tools that you buy, the total investment for these tools is probably going to put you in the $300 range, and you'll use them on every future install. So a little money math here, my third install, the gym unit, came out to around $722 in direct costs for the mini split itself, and about $1,100 all in when you add in the tools, concrete, and electrical. The average professional mini split install runs somewhere between $3,000 and $6,000 depending on your location. Even on my first install, when I was buying every tool from scratch, I still came in well under that professional price range, and after every install that gets cheaper because you already have the sunk cost of the tools. So that's what I've learned after doing 3 mini split installs. If you're thinking about doing one yourself, I hope this video gives you some confidence. It's a very doable project and it gets easier every time. If you want to see the full step-by-step installs that I've done, I'll put the videos for all 3 in the description below and the cards above. Until next time, this is Redbeard Engineered, signing off.